Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, y'all. Y'all know the drill. Come on. Let's get it. Say it with me. Wake up and win. Wake up and win. Wake up and win. Good morning and welcome everyone to Wake Up and Win Live with your girl, Dr. Najuma. Thank you for joining us on Wake Up and Win Live with your girl, Dr. Najuma. So glad to be on with each and every one of you. So glad to be on with each and every one of you on this beautiful day. Wake up and win. Wake up and win. We are getting into part 11, the 11th episode of this series, Releasing All Attachments. We're doing the whole month of August on the series, Releasing All Attachment. And so today we're going to get into, I got a couple more points I want to say about process, and then we're going to get into the prayer strategy. So we're going to focus this morning on the prayer strategy. We've been talking about purpose, we've been talking about process. Now we're going to get into the prayer strategy of releasing all attachments, And so get your notebooks out, get your pens out, get ready to take some notes so you can write some things down. But before we do that, let me reintroduce myself. I am your girl, Reverend Dr. Najuma Smith. I am a pastor, a purpose coach, and I do a lot of engagement, public engagement, community and civic engagement work, public engagement work in the city of LA. And so very grateful to be on with you all this morning to share with you today's win word. And what I know to be for sure, what I know to be true, and this is what we use this platform for, is you can go through a major loss, recover, restore, rebuild, and get back out there and win again. You can go through a major loss, recover, restore, rebuild, and get back out there and win again. And so that's what I use this platform for. Um, in all that I do as a pastor, and coaching and the public engagement work that I do, um, I have gone through my own personal losses. The biggest one, of course, being losing my son through community violence, but also, other had huge trauma, trauma triggering losses that many of us go through in life. Um, and I use this platform because what I know to be true is that you can go through a major loss, recover, restore, rebuild, and get back out there and win again. And so this platform is all about offering a win word to help you, to all of our listeners, to find your way to winning again, to help you find your way to winning again. And so we offer tips, information, things that can equip you to find your way to winning again after whatever losses you've been through. So let's get into today's win word, which is prayer strategy. But before I do that, I want to go back because yesterday I shared with you a little bit about process, and that part of my process was identifying the attachments. Part of my process was identifying the attachments. Part of my process was identifying the attachments. And that was important. And I shared yesterday that it took me nearly 6 weeks to really do the deep work within, to go within, to recall, to remember what those things were. Like, it was in depth. Like, I really spent time, and I went all the way back to being 14. And let me tell you why 14, because at 14, I started having sex at 14. I became sexually active at 14. And I understood when God started talking to me about this releasing all attachments, that or a good portion of these attachments was a result of sexual partners, right? So I started having sex. I became sexually active at 14, and I have no shame in my story. Um, and and I recognized when God started talking to me about releasing all attachments, part of those attachments were a result of or came through sexual partners, right? Over the years, right? I'm 52, so I've lived. I'll say it that way. I've lived. And so very nice. So in I've lived a full life. So, it is what it is. And so part of the work was those identifying those situations, going back, writing them down, recalling names, recalling situations. Some things were even very dangerous as relates to, on two occasions, my life was on the line. And so recalling all of that, starting with the age of 14 on up, right? And I've lived a full life. And one day I'm gonna write my whole story. Um, and so having to go back through all those situationships, relationships, but then also all the other things that came with those scenarios, right? Some people are involved in other things that I became involved in, and so on and so forth. And again, I'm gonna say it this way: I have lived. I have lived a full life. There's not much you can tell me that I have not seen or maybe even participated in. I've lived a full life. I've lived a full life. That being said, it took 6 weeks to really go through to go through all the attachments, who they were, what it was, situations, scenarios, places, people. And it was a combination of like remembering and then calling out the attachment, like remembering and naming the attachment. And so part of that work included my first prayer strategy, because there were two. My first prayer strategy was asking God to help me to recall, like, God, help me to recall the things that I have, selectively forgotten, because there's some things we just want to forget. We don't want to remember. And the things that I allowed to be passe, meaning sometimes we allow things that happen in us, through us, and around us, and we just be like, oh, whatever. So I say passe, things that I was passe about, like whatever that happened, it was what it was, whatever, moving on. And not paying attention to how those created attachments to either behavior, ways of being, ways of thinking, right? And repeat activity. Okay. So I'm saying a whole lot, but I'm not saying, yeah, I'm saying a whole lot, and I know you all get all that. So, um, because I don't want to give any of past life energy, so I'm being intentional, not saying specific names and words, because I don't want to give it energy, right? And because I've done the work, I don't want to recall it. So I'm being intentional with my words, but I know you understand that you can be around people, be around things, and you can take on activities, mindsets, behaviors, simply because you're in an environment too much or too long, right? And so my first prayer strategy, because this morning we're talking about prayer strategy, was, God, help me to recall the things that I have selectively forgotten, that I treated as passe. It is what it is. It was, whatever. And even things that I have intentionally, that subconsciously forgot. There were some things I just forgot, like just forgot. But it doesn't mean that the impact on my life, on my spirit, was not there. So my first prayer strategy was really praying for God to help me to recall, not recall for the sake of reliving, but recall for the purpose of addressing in the second part of the prayer strategy, which we're going to get into. So for those of you that are saying, okay, I want to do this for my life. I want to release all attachments. I want to go back to the very beginning, and your beginning won't be my beginning, and my beginning isn't your beginning. So you need to go back as far back as you need to go back, right? And even in that, God will give you clarity on how far back to go. For me, it started with when I first became sexually active, right? Because that situation, and even that had some trauma attached to it, which is why I went back to that as a starting place, because there was trauma attached to, um, that that first relationship and sexual experience. So my first prayer again was, God, help me to recall, help me to remember, help me to see what I missed, right? Because there were some things, again, treated passe, didn't pay attention, didn't give energy to, or just kind of ignored. I'm not gonna say, and in ignoring it, did not address it spiritually, right? And not in ignoring it, it was never got addressed spiritually, which is why oftentimes adults have to go to therapy for stuff that happened as children or teenagers, because it is sometimes we just kind of let things be, whatever, like, oh, whatever that happened, it was what it was, and then we just kind of move on with life, not realizing that it still attaches itself to us, and it can become a point of trigger, or It can cause a mindset or way of thinking, way of believing, and you're, as an adult, trying to figure out where did that come from. So I really wanted God to show me what I missed. Show me what I forgot. Show me what I didn't pay attention to. Show me the things that I just kind of let be, but really they needed to be addressed. Really, I probably needed therapy. Really, I probably should have, talked to someone about those things, right? And so I had to ask God, help me to remember, help me to go back, help me to recall. So, for the purpose of identifying the attachment, for the purpose of identifying the attachment, which is why I'm not giving energy. I don't want to say names and words because I don't want to go back and give those things energy. I don't want to call them back to life, if you will. But God knows, and you have to do this assessment for yourself, right? You have to do this process for yourself. And everybody's life journey is different. And so it may look different for you, but the process is still the same, but it may look different for you. So, and you will need to go back in your history as far as you need to go back, right? So wherever you feel or believe the attachments began, or whatever may have been the life experience, right? So you have to ask God to show you that. So that's the first prayer strategy is, God, show me what I missed. Show me where to begin. How far back do I need to go? Show me where the attachments started. Show me where it started. And for me, that process took 6 weeks for it to all be put on paper, for it to all be put on paper and to see it. So then I can begin to address it in the next prayer strategy. And because I'm likely talking to adults, your time frame, if there may be a lot there. For me, it was a lot. It was 62, 60 something names, 20 something situations, that had to all come up and be put on paper. Now, eventually that paper was torn out of my journal, and it was buried, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. But initially, for all that to come up and to see it, to see the attachments, to see the names, to see the people, to see the situations, to see the mindsets on paper, so then I could then confront it. But all of that had to come up, and I had to seek God to bring able to recall it all. Okay, so ask God to help you to recall some things, to remember some things, to remind you of some things that maybe you ignored. And ignoring something doesn't make it go away. When we're talking about this is spiritual work, right? This is spirit work. And so even though it may not be in the forefront of your mind every day, or you may not think about a situation or a person all the time or every day, the impact, the attachment can still be there if it was never dealt with spiritually, if there was no repentance, if there was no forgiveness, if there was no releasing, which is why you could be an adult and something that can come up and you're like, where did that thought, where did that idea, where did that energy, where did that behavior come from? Where did that interest come from, right? Because some things can lay dormant until it's time for it to come forward. But the attachment has been there. The attachment's there. It's been dormant until it was time, until it was opportunity, which is why you want to go all the way back, as far back as you can, as far back as you need to, call it up, put it on paper, or put it somewhere so you can see it, so you can name it, so you can call it. So then tomorrow's prayer strategy, you can cut it. We cannot release and cut that which we cannot call, have not called forward, right? That which we have not called forward, we cannot release it nor cut it. And so when you, and so this is a process, okay? And it may take you some time, it may take you some days. For me, it took 6 weeks. It took 6 weeks of recalling it, putting it all out in front so I could see it and call it out, and then I could deal with it in tomorrow's prayer strategy. But the first prayer strategy is asking God to show you what's laying dormant. Show you what's laying dormant that needs to be dealt with. What's hidden, what's hidden in the body, what's hidden in the mind, what's hidden in the heart, that at any given moment could come forward and it not be in your best interest. Why do you keep going back to a certain kind of person? Because there's something on the inside of you, right? Why do you keep going to a certain kind of behavior, and even though you know it's not good for you, but why is there still an interest in that? Because there are things laying dormant in us spiritually. There are things laying dormant in us psychologically, right? Emotionally. There are things that can lay dormant, attachments that had an entrance way and it just lay dormant. But now at 30 something, 40 something, 50 something, you find yourself interested in a thing, or wanting to go back to a thing, or go back to an activity, or go back someplace, because that attachment has never went away. Simply because you ignored it doesn't mean it went anywhere. Because you haven't talked about it doesn't mean it went anywhere. Right? That's why you can run into someone you haven't seen in 20 years and all of a sudden be flooded with emotions because that never got dealt with, even if that relationship wasn't good for you. A flood of emotion. Why? Because there's an attachment that never got dealt with. There's a connection that never got severed. You can go into a room and all of a sudden like something that you didn't like before, or like something, a food item, and you haven't had it in years and really don't like it, but there's an attachment through that item or that thing or that food because of something in your past, and now you're drawn to it. And the Bible makes it clear we are not drawn away by the things external. We are drawn away by what's inside of us. We are drawn away by what's inside of us. So tomorrow, so the first prayer strategy I want to just leave you with today is to begin to ask God to show you the things, show you where the attachments are laying dormant, show you where they began, show you the things that you have forgotten, the things that you have allowed to just pass, you just push past it, right? But there's an attachment there. Mind, body, soul, spirit. There's an attachment. God, show me what I'm missing. Show me what I have tucked away. Show me what's hidden in me. Show me what I have, just tucked away back here someplace so I can deal with it. And then put it on paper. Show me and then put it on paper. Because tomorrow's prayer strategy, part 2, the second part of the prayer strategy, is now that God has shown it to you, what to do with it. So tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., join us for this next level in our prayer strategy. First prayer strategy is God, show me. Because we're drawn, and we're going to get into that text tomorrow about being drawn away by what's on the inside of you. There's some things hidden, some things you've forgotten, some things you have selectively forgotten, some things that you just kind of push past, and pushing past it. Thank you. Forgetting it does not mean it's been dealt with, and it could still be an attachment there, hidden. Okay. So thank you for being joining us this morning on Prayer Strategy Part 1. God, show me. God, show me. Now, tomorrow, once God shows it to you, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? Okay, so that's the second part of our prayer strategy tomorrow. So join us tomorrow morning for Releasing All Attachments, our series for the month of August. I hope this is helping you. Take notes, leave comments, like, share, and subscribe. Leave comments in the chat section, in the comment section. Like, share, and subscribe. You all have an amazing day. And my prayer for you today is, as you pray about these things, that they're not triggering, but eye-opening. It's a difference that they are my prayer for you is that they're not triggering but eye opening, so you really can see what's been laying dormant and or hidden. Amen. And as God shows these things, you're not triggered, but that you can really see clearly what's been hidden, what's been forgotten, what's been laying dormant. So tomorrow we can know how and what to do about it. Amen. Because God's changing our lives and He's doing it so we can get up, get out there, and go in. He's changing our lives so we can get up, get out there, and go in. All right. Love you all. Have an amazing day. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Like, share, and subscribe.